Welcome to Multifamily Insights. I'm your host, John Casman, and I want to thank you for joining us for another great episode. If you are enjoying this show, do me one quick favor. It's a little favor. Just do it real quick for me. Leave us that rating and review. And if you haven't done so already, be sure to hit that subscribe button. We've got a great show today. We're going to be talking to Amy Sylvis. The real estate landscape is changing, and you need to be prepared to take advantage of the emerging opportunities. That's why you should join me and other top real estate investors for the Midwest Real Estate Networking Summit, May 6th and 7th in Chicago. Now, you want to build the connections and partnerships that will help you scale your portfolio. Guest speakers include Jay Papasan, author of the #1 best-selling book, The One Thing; Ray Higdon, network marketing expert and author of Freakishly Effective Leadership for Network Marketers; and Tarl Yarber, Bigger Pockets contributor and the CEO of Fixated Real Estate. Now, join us for the Midwest Real Estate Networking Summit on May 6th and 7th in Chicago. Tickets are available right now at MidwestRESummit.com. Use promo code PODCAST to save on your ticket today. Again, go to MidwestRESummit.com and use promo code PODCAST to save on your ticket. Now, prior to working in multifamily real estate, Amy spent 13 years in the pharmaceutical and biotech industries. She was attracted to the industry because of her previous work or previous health challenges and wanted to help others navigate illness. Now, while traveling on business, she picked up Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and a light bulb went off. Now, Amy has always been drawn to growth and expansion, and she knew that she could support herself and serve even more people through investing in multifamily real estate. With that said, let's welcome to the show, Amy Sylvis.
Thank you so much, John. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Amy, it's great to have you on the show. I went over your bio at a very high level. Why don't you fill in some of those gaps and tell us about where you're at today?
Sure. So I am the founder and CEO of Sylvis Capital, and we connect folks with exciting passive real estate investment opportunities in emerging markets throughout the United States so that folks don't have to deal with the daily hassles of tenants, termites, and toilets. So that's where we are. We currently have close to 700 multifamily units, 200,000 plus square feet of flex industrial space. And we're continuing to grow to serve as many investors and residents and tenants as possible.
I love it. Now, you mentioned that, or I mentioned, I guess, in your bio that you were kind of drawn into the pharmaceutical and biotech space due to some, maybe your previous challenges you faced health before really discovering Rich Dad, Poor Dad and going more into multifamily. Let's rewind the clock a little bit so we have a better sense of kind of your journey in general. So talk to us about kind of your journey and what kind of led you into that space.
Perfect. Well, I'm here in Los Angeles, born and raised to a very humble lower middle class family. In fact, my father at 69 years old still does manual labor out here in LA. And this concept of trading time for money was really all my family and I knew. I was born with a health challenge called cystic fibrosis. If you don't know what that is, it's a chronic kind of deterioration of the lungs. And so when I was born in 1981, I'm 41 years old, I was supposed to be around 8 or 9 years old. So I always kind of had this concept of my health was going to deteriorate and I didn't know how I was going to support myself through this health deterioration. So I always thought getting a bigger, badder job, getting my MBA, maybe climbing the corporate ladder as best as my health would allow would give me that safety and security I was looking for. But thankfully, as you mentioned, I stumbled upon that purple book. I think a lot of us are familiar with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and really unlocked this really reassuring concept of passive income, knowing that despite where my health was, I could still be self-sustaining and not be a burden on my family. They kill me for saying that, but be able to pay my own bills and provide for myself. So that really started off this commercial real estate investing journey. And then I'm excited to share it with other people so that they can have their own financial freedom.
I appreciate you sharing that because it's interesting listening to you talk about your background and, the health challenges you faced. Because whether it be health reasons or other reasons, we all have something that leads us down this path. Even just listening to this conversation, for you to listen to this conversation, you're likely concerned about the financial future for your family, right? You're concerned about where you're going to end up, where your family is going to end up, and how do you best protect them and set them up for success? How do you take care of yourself? How do you have something to show for the time you have on this planet, right? To give to the next generation. So I think all these things are really important. And for you, kind of your health challenges led you down this path. And that book really changed the way you viewed money and talked about, exchanging time for money. And you realized there was a way to change that. So as you kind of discovered that for yourself, talk to us about maybe, realizing this is a path you wanted to go down and inviting other people to join you on this path.
Yeah, I'm sure many of your listeners would resonate with this. It's so exciting to find a life hack or a new discovery on how to make life better. And it's great to apply it to your own life, but my gosh, how rewarding to be of service to other people and spread the word. Most of my investors are on the coast, not all of them, but in states like California and New York, where it's not really easy to find deals and operate them. So if I can be of service and give folks the same freedom I have, I thought that would be an incredible concept. So of course, it took a few years to kind of get all that up and running. But as I'm sure you agree, John, the why behind something can really drive you. And that's been a huge motivator for me to be able to share my learnings and my success with other people so they can come alongside and take advantage of my knowledge and experience for the ride.
I love it. Let's dig a little deeper there, right? So you make
Yeah.
this decision mentally that, hey, this is the path I'm going to go down. I know you continue your education and learning all those different things. What does that first deal look like and how does that come about?
It took me 10 years to do my
Wow.
first deal from the time I decided, yes. So a bit of background, cystic fibrosis means I have to do a lot of self-care at home, breathing treatments. I'm in and out of the hospital fighting life-threatening lung infections and such. I was balancing what was really a full-time job with my health and then a full-time job in the biotech sector. So it took many attempts and frankly failures of trying to crack into the multifamily space while balancing all those things. Of course, all's well that ends well. I ended up deciding to passively invest and gain some experience from other operators to learn the good, bad, and the ugly when my health really wouldn't allow me to jump into the multifamily space. But a miracle medication for cystic fibrosis came on the market in 2019. And thankfully, the 10 years of trying and failing really came to an end when I had my health and I could finally take advantage of all that experience and launch my career. So yeah, my first deal was closed in 2020 after 10 years of experience
That's
or 10 years
amazing.
of trying.
Well, and I appreciate you sharing that, right? Because I think it reminds us all that, this is a marathon and you have to run your race. And sometimes it may be frustrating that you're not seeing more progress or more results, but you have to stick to the path. And I also love that you did decide to invest passively. And I think that's a great insight. If you're out there and you're, similar to Amy, trying to grow your own portfolio, trying to lead your own deals, you believe in it, you're drinking the Kool-Aid, you love multifamily, you love commercial real estate, but you're having a hard time finding a deal, consider investing passively. Get the traction. You continue to learn, you continue to grow, you get some real experience, and you'll put yourselves in the shoes of maybe the people you want to partner with in the future. So I think that's a wise decision to make so you can continue to see progress. Just going back to kind of your health journey, you talked about this magical drug that came out in 2019 that allowed you to really change your life. And I can only imagine what that must have felt like for you to spend your entire life, and you and I are very similar in age. So to spend your entire life, fighting this thing and to finally see, I don't want to say the end of the light, but to get to a point where your lifestyle can change for the better after so long. I can only imagine how emotionally what that must feel like. And then right around the corner comes COVID. And that's got to be super scary for everyone, but for you in particular. I mean, what was that like?
I love that you bring that up, and that really shows your emotional intelligence and empathy, John. I don't. Very few people make that connection, so I'm actually really impressed that you say that. Yeah, it was really scary, but I'll tell you what: isolating at home during 2020, 2021 was the ideal timing to build this business. Because guess what? I had nothing else to do. There was nowhere to go except contact brokers over Zoom. So magically, I didn't have to travel to Tennessee or Alabama. It gives me goosebumps even to talk to, because doing what you and I are doing, Zooming, was normal. I had lots of time. I had my keyboard. I had the internet. And it was really trying to make lemonade out of lemons hey, I'm stuck here. And yes, I'm a bit more vulnerable to this pandemic, but I'm not going to miss on this opportunity to exponentially grow my wealth, help my investors, and the like. So it turned out to be a massive blessing, believe it or not.
No, I appreciate you sharing that, and it's great to hear that you're doing well. It's you know, the only thing I can equate it to for me personally is I suffer from asthma, and I was lifelong asthmatic, and my mom would tell you I've been to the hospital plenty of times. But when I was like 12, the doctor told me I no longer needed to take like these. I used to take a machine 3 times a day, and I just remember the elation I felt. Like that is still like one of the top 5 best days of my life, right?
Yes.
It's just like when
Yes.
you have something that is such a big part of you to be able to see a shift. I can only imagine what that must have been like for you. So in my mind, I
Yes.
kind of went back to me as like 12 or 13-year-old. And I can only imagine what that must be like. So let's fast forward, right? So amazing
Yes.
that you're able to lock in during the pandemic, build this business. You're up to over 700 units right now in the portfolio. How do you manage the scale and the growth, particularly during the pandemic, right? Because now you're talking about getting team members together, and obviously you're careful about going out and touring everything and all those kind of things. But
Yes.
how are you
Yeah.
building a team? How are you scaling all this over the last 2-3 years?
And that was, you hit the nail on the head. Given kind of being a solo contributor in my career, because my career couldn't grow all that fast because of my health challenges and the things I had to do to prepare and have my health do well, everything was done by me. I had to rely on myself. And it wasn't until I made the connection in the real estate space of, oh, this is a team sport. I can go further faster with a team, and networking and partnering and figuring out how we can have synergy and identifying if we have like-minded values was everything. So yes, finding partners through networking and through previous connections was incredibly important. And thankfully I linked up with some great teams that were based in the markets where I was looking to invest, and being able to, yes, leverage, what they were able to do on the ground when I couldn't travel and I had all the time in the world. So that's what I was able to contribute, as well as, my skills and my connections. So the team aspect of it is everything.
I think there's another great lesson and insight right there, right? What are you good at? What are your skills? Figure that out. And then where are your challenges? And if you have a challenge that's significant, in your case, it's maybe being able to physically be in some of these markets, both because you're out in California, but also because of maybe the health issues.
Yeah.
Well, that's where you want to tap into boots on the ground and leverage those folks. So understanding the importance of building strong teams, that's another hack, right? If you want to be a successful investor, you're going to have strong people on your team. And that is just great. How did you vet these individuals? Were you just on Zoom calls with them? Did you just, put something out there on Bigger Pockets or Facebook and see who responded and hire them right away? What was that process like?
Yes. It was really intentional through listening to podcasts, following people on social media, and getting into networking groups. So my first business partner was actually Maurice Philogene. Some people may have heard his name or know about him, but we really aligned over values. And that's something I cherish so much, because I'll be honest, it wasn't intentional at the time. I didn't realize how important that aspect was. Skills are important, matching, maybe shortcomings with skills or areas of strength are also important. But Mo and I really connected over our desire to have real estate just be a vehicle for something better. We really care about donating to charity, making sure we treat our residents extremely well, create a community, and not maximize every single cent we can squeeze out of an investment, which, it's fine if people do that. But having this greater vision was something we really came together in terms of values. And that just led naturally to a continued conversation of, yeah, how can we partner? Are there opportunities and ways that we can complement each other? So that was really a big life lesson. And I've continued to encourage others to really talk about values and understand what matters to you, so you form a business relationship that really sits well and serves what you're looking to do.
I think it's really cool that you focused on the relationship aspect, right? Relationships matter. Who do you have, shared values with, that connection with? And yes, you're going to do everything you can to vet people, but, lock it in on who you feel natural with, who's that connection with? What are they worried about? What are their concerns? Is it just about the returns, or is it a bigger picture involved, right? And if you're looking to partner with people, I think that is even more important, right? If you're going to do one deal, sure, maybe the right market and the right operator is key. But if you're really looking to partner with someone and to grow a long relationship, you want to make sure that the personality and the values and all of those things match as well. So another really great insight, Amy. Talk to us about where you're headed. Like, what are you looking at today? What's in the future? What are the things that you're seeing as you look for the immediate future here?
Yes. So here in January 2023, as we're recording, I think we're still in price discovery mode, at least in the multifamily space or likely in the greater commercial real estate space. So deal flow has slowed down a little bit. Interest rates are continuing to rise. I think some folks are a little nervous about a recession, but I'm excited because I remember what it was like. Let's go back to June of 2020 when unemployment was above 10%, GDP quarter over quarter fell 30+%, wild times, right? And I leaned in and I decided to find deals just like I'm doing today, knowing that the fundamentals are still there. There are opportunities even when folks are a bit scared or nervous, because there are always markets, there are always distressed sellers, there are always people that are looking to sell. And if we buy at a great cost basis and have a strategic business plan in the right market, we can do well for ourselves. So looking to continue to grow in 2023 in multifamily and in industrial, double the amount of investors and the amount of residents that we can serve this year. Pretty big, hairy, audacious goal, but I know we can do it. And then ultimately hit some charitable giving goals that my husband and I have that the business will help us fuel.
So when you think about growing the portfolio and leaning into kind of the current market cycle, how do you do that while still protecting yourself and protecting your investors?
Yes, very clear risk mitigation strategies. So we start first with the market. As you can imagine, living in Los Angeles, LA is not the same market as Kansas City, Missouri. Very different political environments, very different net migration, economic and job growth criteria. So we start at the market level and identify these markets that tend to be recession resistant, recover from recessions the most quickly, that have a broad economic base. They aren't just based on one type of industry. So we start there. And then we find deals that make sense. So are there deals that have a cost basis? Are we purchasing well below market? Are there value add opportunities where we can leave rents and not renovate and still do okay? Or are there ways we can really force appreciation if the market is looking for that and drive value that way? All sorts of mitigation tactics we look at to make sure that we're really doing right, to your point, of doing well for our investors while also hedging ourselves and preserving capital in what might be some hectic economic times coming up.
Do you adjust your hold periods, or are there other adjustments you make just to give you a little bit more flexibility than maybe what you were doing a few years back?
Yeah, conversations with investors are always very important around expectations. So we always project the 5-year hold. Some of our projects over the past several years have been a year and a half, 2 years. We reached our goal more quickly. And we let them know that, yes, we're not going to sell at a loss. So if we happen to be at a point in the economic cycle, things outside of our control, where it's important that we hold for a little bit longer, we always make sure our investors understand that that's a possibility. So we really articulate some of the worst case scenarios to make sure investors understand, and then back up and talk about risk mitigation tactics so that everyone's really comfortable. So yeah, one of those levers we can pull is a longer hold, always in play.
Go. It's good to know. And I think too, it helps just to manage those expectations when you're talking to investors, because especially if they've been in deals with you before, right? Because maybe they're in the deal with you last time and it's sold in 2 years. And they're like, oh, this is great. It's going to sell in 2 years again. So you may need to pump the brakes a little bit and say, hey, that was a unique situation. It may happen again, but don't invest banking on that scenario. When you are talking to investors, how are those conversations shifted over the last, say, 6 months?
Yeah, I think investors definitely hear what the internet and the media, say about doom and gloom, which I understand. I think, again, I'm a pretty conservative investor, so I appreciate when folks express what they're worried about, what they're looking out for, and maybe what their confusion is. So I think those conversations are imperative. But yeah, I think some folks, even newer investors, conflate single family housing with multifamily and how those behave during certain market cycles and their ability to, control value as investors. So we really talk the gamut. I would way rather have a smaller database of investors that I talk to often, that we have deep relationships and very transparent and open conversations so that everyone feels comfortable, rather than, just trying to gloss over and pretend that everything's rosy. It's not. Investing is risky. It will always be risky. So walking through and making sure what we're doing aligns with folks' goals and risk tolerance, incredibly important. So love to have those conversations.
I think it's really helpful to recognize where people are coming from and helping them understand their risk tolerance, right? So to your point, when we say that, the stock market last year did, the worst that it's done since, the last great recession. And as we think about, where the market is headed, this is one of those things where you want to diversify, you want to protect yourself, but you also have to understand your level of risk and how much risk you take and where is there risk in deals. And for some people, they just think real estate as one broad spectrum, right? Especially if you're watching, cable news. It's like, oh, real estate. Well, real estate is down. Real estate is this. Can you just elaborate a little bit more? Because there's differences between the various asset classes, the different sectors. So when you look at real estate, how are you explaining the differences between maybe what we're hearing on these talk shows and cable news versus what you're actually seeing in practicality?
Yes, I love that. Well, I think most folks have the most experience with single family housing, right? And fresh in all of our minds is the crash of 2008 and what happened in the single family market there. So yeah, I love to first dive in and compare single family to multifamily in terms of, how do we make money? Multifamily, there isn't owner occupied. We have cash flow, varying degrees, but there typically is some sort of cash flow. So we don't have to make money on our money by selling, which is often what owner occupied homes have to do in the single family space. And then the sphere of control. We're able to force appreciation in the multifamily space, unlike single family. Single family is typically valued just based on comps. Multifamily, we typically pay a multiple based on the net operating income. So how do we change net operating income? So many levers we can pull. We can reduce expenses. We can manage more efficiently. We can renovate, as I mentioned earlier, and push rents if that's something that the market will tolerate. There are so many ways we can influence the valuation of the property there. And then, of course, a whole myriad of being able to invest in markets where we think things will do well, where the economy is still growing. Because believe it or not, even during the 2008 economic crisis, there were markets like Dallas that were still growing economically and that were still vibrant. So that will exist if and when we have a recession, and we have the tools to be able to very astutely place our bets on which markets may be able to do well there. So all of these things, and I could drone on and on, are big differences between single family and multifamily. And then we can get into the differences in other types of real estate if you'd like. But the bottom line is there's a lot of choice and opportunity, no matter what the market cycle, which really keeps me excited, and that my investors, once they understand, are excited to participate in it as well.
Yeah, I mean, takeaway here is that all real estate is not created equal, right? There's single family houses where people live. And if you're investing in those, you have to understand that those dynamics change based on interest rates and other factors that you may or may not be able to control. But in commercial multifamily, those are driven by the rental income that's coming in, the NOI or net operating income of the property, and you have more control over driving what some of those numbers look like. So that's something that is very important to understand, that you can't pay attention to what, again, these cable news outlets or articles are talking about with real estate. You have to really understand the sector. And the other piece I would say is that these are investment driven. So multifamily those properties are owned by investors. Well, if investors are getting clobbered in the stock market, many of us are going to be likely to pull money out of the stock market and invest in an asset class we control when we exit, like you kind of mentioned earlier. So that's one of the things that we have to understand too, is that we're still looking at these assets because not only is there rental income, but there's these amazing tax benefits, there's great appreciation, and there's so many other perks that come with investing in commercial real estate that you don't get with the stock market or you don't get necessarily with single family homes. So just a couple things that are really important to understand. And I want to play back a couple of things that you mentioned earlier. When we talk about risk mitigation, one thing you said was understanding the markets that you're looking at. You like recession resistant markets, markets that have multiple industries, different types of jobs that are driving growth there, and overall the population is doing well. The other thing you talked about was the deals themselves. What is the deal? What's the property? What's the opportunity? Can we add value? Can we buy it at a cost that is, below replacement value? What's our business plan going to be? So understanding those elements allows you to take some risk off the table and invest in quality assets. So, the other thing when we talked about your goals, you mentioned that you were focused on, again, driving your portfolio and working with other investors, but also finding opportunities to kind of give back and looking at your charitable contributions. Talk to us a little bit more about that and why that is important to you and your husband.
Yeah, of course, of course. As I mentioned, I'm in Los Angeles. My husband grew up in East Los Angeles and was the benefactor of after-school programs in East LA. And to us, we don't have children ourselves, but we really feel, as you can probably imagine, extremely fortunate for everything that we have in life, our health, just our ability to have a roof over our head, the education that we received. So being able to find a way to impact children, especially locally here in Los Angeles, by donating to organizations like Heart of Los Angeles that are these incredibly powerful after-school programs that serve underprivileged children that don't have as many opportunities as someone like me had growing up through no fault of their own. And they're our future. They're beautiful souls that deserve to be enriched and supported and feel appreciated. So we really enjoy being able to take some of our profits and pour into the community, knowing that the ripple effect it will have by caring for our future, which are all the children we have here in LA, will make a tremendous impact. So we're delighted to do that. Obviously, my husband Joel's experience in benefiting that way as a child really has helped us get a greater understanding and have empathy of where our dollars might be able to have tremendous impact.
And I think, too, it's just important to understand, again, your journey. And as I listen to you talk and understand kind of the gratitude that you have and the empathy that you have to be able to help other people, it kind of goes back to your conversation about values and principles and, who you are at your core and making sure that you align with people who are like-minded. So really appreciate you sharing that and opening up and sharing just some of those things that are important to you and how you kind of drive your business going forward. For folks who want to learn more about you or figure out how they can connect and get involved, your website is sylviscapital.com. And I know you also have a webinar available if you use sylviscapital.com/webinar, where they can learn a little bit more about you and investing. Any other insights that they can get if they connect with you?
Yes, absolutely. I am always sharing interesting information on LinkedIn. If you're interested in following me there, I believe in freely giving as much research and information as possible. So yes, whether we're talking about market research, whether we're talking about how to understand and vet deals, or even different ways to source capital to invest in deals like a self-directed IRA, the goal is really to just add as much value and help people along their journey for freedom, financial freedom for themselves and their families. So always delighted to add value to folks as much as possible.
All right. Thank you, Amy. We're going to move on to our round of insights. Are you ready?
All right. Yes.
Give me a failure or an apparent failure that sets you up for later success.
I think definitely those 10 years of trying to break into this industry. I definitely didn't really consider passively investing when I started this journey. And it really did feel like a failure that there were several deals that I just couldn't pull off. But my gosh, the insight and the more intelligent I am now, because I was able to learn from other successful people that were operators at the time by passively investing, turned out to be a huge success, if you will.
Give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for your business.
Okay. Let's see. A website called datausa.io. It is a great resource to do market research, which I think is incredibly important for everyone to do, whether you're a passive or active investor. one of the coolest things on that website, you can look up by market or by city, if you will, what type of industries are operating in that area. As you remember, I mentioned, find a market where there are lots of different industries. You can see that visually in the markets you're researching. And it's a free website. Check it out.
It's one of my favorites, and it's also one that I always recommend as well. So I love datausa.io, and partially because almost every other website with data is a government website, and it's very difficult to read and understand and follow. And datausa.io is more visually appealing for some of us who maybe aren't as data. Look, we love data, but I need to see the data in a way that I can understand. So great website. We'll definitely make sure we link to that in the show notes. All right, give me the book that you recommended or gifted the most in the last year.
The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin. It's a big book. It's a little bit of a dry read at the very beginning, but I really think it's imperative for all of us, myself included, to understand how our monetary system works so we can protect ourselves during what may be coming down the road.
What's a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals?
So I do the Miracle Morning Savers. So I journal, I say my affirmations, I visualize my goals, I read, I meditate. All of those things really help me focus. I'm a doer, so the second my eyes open up in the morning, I want to just get going. I want to underwrite, I want to call brokers, I want to talk to investors, but I can get really lost in the details and kind of the task orientation of what I do. So having a rhythm of stepping back and pausing in the morning to really focus on the greater picture and what I'm trying to achieve has helped me tremendously.
All right, give me your number one insight for multifamily investing.
Number one insight for multifamily investing. It has to be market research. I see a lot of folks look for deals and try to justify the location of the deal and justify the market once they found the actual property to invest in. I cannot recommend more turning that on its head, identifying markets that have positive economic, political, and migration trends, and then diving in to find properties within that given market. I think it's a huge hack.
All right, let's lighten the mood. You mentioned that you are in LA. Give me your favorite place to grab a bite to eat.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Where's my favorite place? So if you're ever on the West Side in Santa Monica, on Wilshire Boulevard, there's this place called Milo and Olive, M-I-L-O. They hand make their bread, their pasta, their sauces all in-house. It's so delicious. My mouth is watering. I just ate there last week. So if you're ever in town, definitely go there. There might be a little bit of a wait, but I promise it's really worth it.
All right, we'll have to put that on the list. We were actually out in LA over the summer, so in Santa Monica. So we'll have to make that on the list for the next time we're out that way.
Amy, well, listen, you got to bring me with you.
All right, well, hey, we'll make sure to reach out and make it happen.
Perfect.
Amy, really enjoyed our conversation. It's great listening to you talk about kind of your journey and how that really impacted your vision and what you were doing. You know, taking 10 years before you really got traction. I think it's a great reminder just to be patient, you know, for all of us. You know, maybe you're not where you want to be today, but stay with it, stay on the grind, but also open up to other ways to get to your goal. You know, maybe passive investing can help you actually accelerate. Maybe partnering with someone else can help you accelerate and reach that goal. But, you know, stay with it, but maybe think of some other ways to get there faster. And then the other thing is just stand true to your process, finding the market, picking markets that are recession resistant, focus on a deal where the deal actually makes sense, whether or not you implement your plan completely, and making sure that you find ways to mitigate risk, you know, talking to investors, letting them know the way you're looking at the deal and aligning with those people and building deep relationships. The last thing for me as a takeaway is partner with people who are like-minded and share your values, you know, from a big picture standpoint, not just on a specific deal, but people who you actually like. You know, I think that's a part we don't talk about a lot, but, you know, building relationships with people you actually want to be in business with, who you don't mind calling 3, 4, 5 years from now, and hopefully still having a good feeling when you talk to them about what you're working on. So, Amy, I just really appreciate you coming on the show today, sharing all these insights, and we look forward to staying in touch with you. Again, if anybody wants to connect with Amy, you can check out her website, sylviscapital.com, as well as check her out on LinkedIn. We'll make sure to put both of those links in our show notes. Amy, thanks again for coming on Multifamily Insights. We look forward to staying in touch, and we hope you have a great day.
Thank you so much.